Father Ben tried to stop scratching his head. No one here knew him well enough, but to him it was a dead giveaway. Why was he nervous about his interview with the bishop? It was just a formality, right? Scratching your head was just not a good idea for anyone who wore black all the time anyway. And why did he need an escort? He knew the way from his student days in the Latin school. Why add an extra layer of work for the staff? Father John Hanson poked his head into the waiting room. "Ben, you're here early. Wait just a minute and I'll be right out." A few seconds later, he came out and handed a leather folder to the receptionist. "The bishop revised the schedule. He's running a bit late. Can you please let his meeting know they'll be pushed back 45 minutes? She nodded and he continued. "I know you just heard His Excellency is running late today. How about you and I walk around the Latin school while we are talking? I called Principal Jordan and he said it would be fine." "I'd love to see the changes I've been hearing about." The two priests left the Chancery building and crossed the street. The cathedral loomed tall on their right. How had the poor German settlers managed to create something so beautiful? And now that he was thinking about it, why model it after two French churches, Notre Dame and St. Denis, rather than a German cathedral? He'd have to ask John, if he ever stopped to take a breath. "So glad to get out of that building. It is stifling. They must have chosen the lowest bidder for the last 10 painting contracts. My windows have so many layers of paint keeping them closed, you'd have to break the pane of glass to let in a breath of air. You would not believe the shakeup going on at the Latin school. Principal Stewart let go after 20 years, although from the things we got away with, maybe it was about time. Several of the senior teachers left as well. Some say it was not voluntary. It was because they were not Catholic. There was some talk about a letter to the bishop." Ben let the flow of words just wash over him. John was a great guy, but he did love finding intrigue and would make up a conspiracy if necessary. The parking lot was completely full at this time of the morning. They dodged cars and made their way up the steps. A short man, dressed in an immaculate suit, was waiting just outside the door. "I'm Principal Jordan. It's a pleasure to have an alum come back and see all the changes we're making. His Excellency asked me to create a more Catholic doctrinal school. It's an exciting time in the Latin school. I think you'll be pleased with what you see." He swept them off on a whirlwind tour. Half an hour later, he released them back at the door. It had been interesting, but it seemed like lots of the changes were for change's sake. It would be interesting to see how they all worked out. Thank God for John's kindness, giving him so much to think about that he wasn't worried about the bishop anymore. They crossed back to the Chancery building, up the flight of steps, and back to the receptionist's office. Ben was about to walk right through when John stopped him. "You need to sign in." "But I already signed in this morning." "I know, but it's policy to track when visitors arrive and how long they stay. Some efficiency thing or other. Just make sure to sign back out as well." That accomplished, they set off for the bishop's office. Passing through the office section, Ben noticed that all visitors had escorts, not just the new priests. That meant that they did not think him specifically stupid, just wanted everyone taken care of. When they reached the bishop's waiting room, the secretary nodded to them. "He's expecting you. Go right in." The bishop, in a simple black suit, rose to greet them. "Now, Father Ben, I hope you've been praying for me as I pray for you. Come on in and have a seat. I want to know your first 6 months have gone, and..." This was going to be better than he'd worried. For all his formality, the bishop was a kind man.